Welcome to Talk Flix with Kids and Chicks. We don't have any kids today. Today we're going to be talking about a documentary that is on Netflix called Abducted in Plain Sight. So this is directed by Skye Borgman. She actually, I think, directed, produced, and did the cinematography, so I thought she did a pretty good job with all of that.
Mr. Birchhold had such an effervescent, wonderful personality. We became very good friends.
He was so engaged with the kids, too. I mean, he really was fun. And
he could give me a great feeling about myself. I was attracted to him.
Jan Broberg and Robert Birchhold had an unnatural relationship.
I loved him as deeply as I've ever loved anyone.
My brother was always a sexual pervert. He always did like his little girls.
Birchhold said, I want to take Jan out horseback riding. When she didn't come home, I was a little nervous.
It was a nationwide search.
Jan went with me voluntarily. They bring in aliens and mind washing.
The mission was that I was to have a child that would save the alien planet by the time I turned 16.
The Brobergs say the attacks still continue.
If you're laying a trap for me, I'll kill you.
His number one goal was to seduce Jan Broberg. And if he had to destroy the family, he would do it.
They talked to each member of the family and just kind of get their experience of what happened with, this man who bamboozled them. His name is Birchtold. So, yeah. Bob, I think his first name was. That's what they called him, was B. Yeah, so he kind of works his way in, and his whole goal is to get their daughter Jan. And so he was able to basically manipulate each person in the family to where because each person is like your family. They kind of like, they have your back. They're kind of like a safeguard against certain things. And so he instantly saw that, and basically one by one took down each of her safeguards so that he could get her and basically control her mentally and emotionally as well, to where she even kind of turned on her family and wanted to be with him. But basically, in essence, what happens is he comes in and, he's a very likable guy, and I guess attractive for that time period. And so he kind of, takes liking to the daughter, and he's like, oh, I want to take her on vacations. And, the family's just so like, oh, he's such a nice guy. Yeah, she can go on vacation with you all by herself, type deal. And, they kind of feel like uncomfortable with it, but it's back in the 70s or so. So pedophilia was a thing, but like it wasn't like how we see pedophilia. Like, oh, this person looks like a pedophile. Like they hadn't really even heard of that word. Like when they were sitting down and interviewing them, a lot of them were like, oh, I had never even heard the word pedophile. I didn't even know what that was.
The thing is that from the interviews, it had been going on before he even abducted her the first time. That she recounted the sleepovers and waking up with her panties being pulled down, and he had a good excuse for that. But I mean, it really is a cautionary tale. Tell as old as time. You can't just send your kids off with people, no matter how nice they may seem, no matter how charming they may be. It's I won't say 9 times out of 10, but a lot of times it's wolves in sheep's clothing. And he was definitely a wolf. He was a huge predator, not just for kids, but adults too. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't feel like they were naive. I felt like they were, I don't even want to say stupid anymore, because the more I thought about it over the last 2 days, because I saw it a few days ago, at first I was thinking they are so stupid. But really what they were is they were selfish.
I think what it was too is a combination of people just kind of, because like one of the things they mentioned at the beginning is, oh, nobody ever locked their doors. It's such a safe neighborhood. Everybody trusts everybody. And it was just one of those things where they didn't understand that you can't trust everybody. Like, they had been living in this type of community for such a long time that, like, that whole thing of, oh, this person could be a predator, it just was foreign to them.
Well, that's true.
And
they
so
also
that
talked
also
about
got
how
them
certain
caught up.
things didn't feel right, but they went along with it anyways.
Yeah, because I think
Whether
they
it be
were so
because-
used to
I don't think it was that.
being able to trust people.
I
Because they kept
think-
saying that, like, well, he seems like a nice guy and, you know, all this other stuff.
The thing is if you looked at the way that the mom talked about her encounters with him, and to a lesser degree, even the dad, they enjoyed his company. When
That's
it
what
was
I'm saying, 'cause
sexual,
they-
when it wasn't.
Right.
So to me, it was selfishness. Instead of those red flags that were waving at them, acknowledging them and saying, whoa, we need to get this guy away from our family, they were so caught up in the way he made them feel.
I
That
understand
they didn't protect that daughter.
and I agree with that. But I think also the whole culture that they lived in played into that, where you could trust everybody. So even if they were like, "Oh, this feels
But
wrong,"
even-
we live in a place where we can trust everybody. So maybe I'm just tripping, I think, is what a lot of that came down to. But I think when I had told you about this yesterday, when we talked about it, was that there was this, it was that human pride was a big problem as well, where, you know, they knew, even after they knew that he had kidnapped her and had did all this stuff to her, they didn't want that to come out, you know, in the trial and stuff, where, oh, yeah, we did have an affair. Oh, yeah, I did kind of, you know, the dad kind of engaged in some homosexual activity with him. He didn't want any of that stuff to come out because of, you know, what other people were going to think.
And
their
that
pride.
was still selfish.
And so, and
because
it
above
goes along with that.
all, the safety and the protection of their daughter should have counted over all of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That
you're
that
supposed
was
to lay your life down for your
that
child.
was the main, I feel, thing that really got them caught up. 'Cause yeah, I mean, you're stupid. Sometimes you know, may let the wrong people in. That happens. But the fact that when you find out, like, this dude is a predator, you know, he abducted your daughter, all of this stuff, and you still were not trying
like
to
I said, the
press charges.
Maybe if it had
you
have
know.
just been the first part of the story when he abducted her the first time. But then when you go into the other half of the documentary where he abducted her the second time, and even before that, when she said, I need to go be with him over the summer to work this job, and they put her on a plane. And this is after the first abduction.
Because he has said some stuff like, what did he threaten them with something?
Well, he just said, oh, she's going to come be with me anyways, and then you'll never see her again. But the reality is, just like he went somewhere else and decided to reinvent himself, they could have pulled up and left and went somewhere where he couldn't have found them. But they decided to stay, and that's what it was. Selfishness. She was still taking that man's phone call.
Maybe they couldn't financially afford just to up and move though.
The thing is, the safety of your kid though.
I understand that,
and he had a business. They were not financial chumps. He had a business.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that business was set, you know, pretty grounded in that area. I don't know, like it didn't get.
I mean,
into
I kind of get what you're saying, but as a parent, right now, if I felt like my children's safety were threatened where we were at, and that we could get them away from that immediate threat, I'm rolling. I'm leaving everything behind, and we gone. And that's what a good parent does.
And it could have also been that, like, sometimes, because they had other kids, sometimes, you know, you don't want to uproot everybody, because then, you know, for kids, like, that is kind of traumatizing to just be like, oh, I got to start all over. So it could have been several factors into that. I agree with you that I probably would have just went ahead and did it anyway, but there were probably things that kind of made them not want to do that.
I'm going to be honest with you. Just
like
judging by the other mistakes that they made, I just feel like that's not what they wanted to do. Like you said, they were prideful and they were selfish. Mm-hmm. You know, they did not put the needs of their daughter and the other children too, because look at what they went through. Twice their sister was gone. And the second time she was gone for, what was that, 3-4 months?
Mm-hmm. And like when she first got abducted, the first and the second time too, they waited so long to
So
call the
long.
authorities, and I'm just like, okay, like, what do you think is happening in the meantime? You know what I mean? Like, usually that thought right there is like, oh shoot, like, we gotta call the police now. Like, he could be murdering her. She, you know, you just don't know.
Even if, for
But they
example,
were like,
you and Dominic went on a road trip and y'all were supposed to be back on X day. If y'all weren't back on X day and I couldn't get a hold to you, I'm going to the police because I'm worried. And you my sister. So if some stranger had my child, which was supposed to be just a trip to go horseback riding, and wasn't back by dark, you don't think I'm not calling the cops? I thought that was just ludicrous. And then they waited the whole weekend. The wife even came over and was concerned. My mind was just blown. Like, I know this is the 70s, during the time when everybody was a little bit wild and free. But, I mean, your love for your child stays the same no matter what era you in.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I think that was that whole, like I said, the culture that was in kind of skewed the urgency of the situation.
Yeah. I mean, and you hate to bring, you brought it in the right way, culture. I'll put it that way. Cultural differences. Because I don't see, you know, we don't, it's not that we don't have an issue with pedophilia and things like that with our young girls and young boys in our community. However, I do feel like even during that time, culturally, black parents were a lot more vigilant about, especially like non-relatives. You know, I don't foresee a black mother saying, yeah, you can take my kid horseback riding, especially something that was hours away.
The thing, and this is the part I was just like, how you were saying, like, these people are stupid. So
I already know what part you're getting ready to talk about too.
The whole therapy where the man apparently went to therapy, and then the therapist said, oh, you know, you should just spend as much time with this daughter.
You need to lay in the bed next to
with her and listen to this recording. And what they call the Brobergs, they were like, oh, okay. This is after the first abduction, correct? Or was this before?
I think this was before.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe it was before. And this grown man, at night, I think it was 4 nights
a week for 6 months.
Sleeping in the bed with
unattended, unsupervised.
And I'm just like, how are you? I mean, and you know, I understand people don't, you know, do their research, and you know, they're like, oh, he's saying this is therapy. Oh, even if you're like, okay, we want to help him get better, why are you not down there with him watching? Like, at the very least, like, obviously I would be like, heck, you know, I'm sorry, you got to find some other daughter to sleep in the bed with.
He had his own daughters.
Right. Right, number one. But you're not even watching. And I'm just like, what is going on? And it's something else. And
I mean, because even going back to the way beginning of the story, the first part, and they were talking about that they could tell that he had a fixation on her, that he was nice to all the other kids, but that he was very attentive to her. And them saying that tells you there was a red flag. You know, they said they didn't feel all the way comfortable with it, but they decided to let him lay in the bed next to her again. Red flag. She didn't want her to go horseback riding, but she caved in because her daughter really wanted to go. Red flag. Like, there were so many chances where the thing could have been turned around. So I don't understand.
And the fact that he was telling the dad that, oh, I'm having problems with me and my wife. She won't, you know, have sex with me and stuff like that. And you gonna let him, so he not having sex, you know, he's kind of like built up frustration and tension, and you gonna be letting him be around your daughter, and he got sexual tension going on. Like, it's just a lot, like you said, it was just a lot of different things that was like, bro, what is this family?
I mean, and I understand that in the 70s, they were just not putting a term to it, right? But let's not sit here and pretend like pedophilia just came into being in the 70s. You know, there's biblical instances of it. So let's not, I just don't feel like that is even an adequate excuse.
I think that, like you said, the mom wanted him, the dad wanted him. So in there, and it's kind of, it's kind of funny because the dad actually reminded me of a man that I actually know, and I was like, dang, is that him? When I was watching it, and I was like, nah, but I think that especially the dad, because dads are supposed to protect their daughters. That's like a whole thing, and the fact that he was also attracted to this man, and maybe he was even kind of competing for his attention too. You know what I mean? Like, because you could tell that, obviously, he liked this man as well. What's his name again? Birchtold. He liked him too, and so, he was. I think him and his wife, who also had several sexual encounters, I think, with him. They wanted him around. Even
and you know what really blew my mind, though?
The daughter.
Bringing it back to what you're talking about. This affair that the mom had with him was after he had abducted her the first time.
Yes, it was.
So I was just like, so you knew he took your daughter. He married your daughter. Begged you for permission to be with your daughter. And then you still found yourself attracted to him to the point where you let yourself be alone and had an affair with him for 8 months? Crazy. When that part hit, me and Daryl was like, whoa.
I really
So you done been with the daughter, the father, and the mother?
I mean,
whoa.
It was something else.
It was, and then what I told you, it was so unbelievable. It was like, this cannot be a documentary. This has to be a script that somebody's imagination came up, because this could not be real life. But it was.
It was real life.
People really lived through that. And I was just like, that is so crazy.
And I was just kind of wondering about the daughter's state of mind. Even today, just how big of an impact that still has on her. She kind of talked about it.
I'm sure.
And it's just like, wow. And she, I'm sure, kind of blames herself too for it. But I mean, if I was in that situation, I would also definitely blame my parents.
Yeah.
Because number one, they let all them red flags go over their head. They let this man continue to, haunt the family, even have all that access. Let me fly out to Jacksonville, all these places where he's working. And it's like, did they even really love me? I can just kind of like imagine myself being like, what kind of parents did I have? Wow, maybe I was an alien, because these can't be my real parents. That's probably why she held on to that alien thing for so long. It's because inside she like, my real parents would never let this happen for real. So maybe I am supposed to be with him. Maybe I'm not really, you know what I'm saying? Like that, honestly, as I'm thinking about it, would make more sense. Like, yeah, I can't be these people's real children or child, because they are not even right. Like, they're not even
I mean, if
parents.
I was her, I just don't see, I would forgive my parents, but we wouldn't be able to have a relationship, because that trust that you have from parent to child was completely trashed. Completely trashed. How could you even trust anybody after they let a monster have access to you like that for much of her childhood? It brings up why a lot of people feel like pedophilia is something that should put you in jail for life.
Yes, that is, yeah, that was,
because even after all the times he just kept going, he would not stop. He was so fixated on her. And then, when he did get caught, he only did 1 year. And what does that say to females about, admitting that they've been assaulted?
It shows, honestly, that this country does not care about children. Like, for real. Like, and that's not even just looking at this documentary. It's looking at experiences that I've had as an educator, as just, someone who's worked with children, and just hearing other people's, experiences and stuff like that happen all the time. These people will out free and, oh yeah, they got to register as a sex offender. Really? Like, that's it? You know what I'm saying? Like, who is looking through the sex offender log all the time? Like, that's not even stuff that they be publishing all the time to where people know, like, oh yeah, he's on that list. Like, it's not enough to.
Well, the
have
thing is,
that.
you register it, but that doesn't stop them from being able to live in your neighborhood. We have many,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It is not like it's a list that's just everybody know who on the list. Like, oh yeah, that's what's the face. Like, it's not even a list that really gets enough recognition.
The thing is,
and it don't do
it's a list, but what
you
does
said
that?
They can still move in anyway.
They can still move in, and how does that stop them from using their intelligence and their willpower in order to have their way? They are hell bent on having these little children. And that's what this documentary shows, is that he was able to do whatever he wanted and have whoever he wanted, grown up or child.
And you know what else made me mad was his brother. I don't remember what his name was, but he was on there like, yeah, you know, he was a pervert. He been a pervert. Why
he was so casual about it.
Right, like it was like, yep, you know, and it's like,
and he even talked about when she came up for the summer, he was like, oh yeah, they were just as happy as could be, and just enjoying each other. And I'm like, but you were sitting there watching that?
That's what I'm saying, and that's why this kind of goes back to that R. Kelly documentary too, is that everybody in that documentary should also be going to jail. Like, everybody who's just complacent and just watching, like, oh, you need to be in jail too. Like, it needs to be more consequence to this. Not even just for the person who doing it, but if you seeing somebody doing it and you're not even trying to stop them or report them or anything, you just kind of turn a blind eye, you need to also be in jail. That person should be the one in jail for just maybe a year. But the person who's doing it definitely needs to be in jail for more than a year. It just needs to be more consequence with this situation. And, you know, you just keep hearing more and more stories. And it's like, wow. And it really, I mean, as, you know, Nicole, it's like she's a parent. It make you kind of like, you know, afraid to send your kids to school, to send them to church with, you know, the youth pastor or whoever, because
well, that's where they met.
They met in that's what
church.
I'm saying. Like, it just make you like, all the places that you would assume would be safe are ending up being the places that are the worst. And so, yeah, it's something else, man.
Well, I mean, and I think we talked about this a little bit last night too. You know, this should be a wake-up call for parents to start having these discussions with your children from the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know, this is not a conversation you have at 12 years old. It's not a conversation that you even have once. It's one that you have very often. And, you know, stop having family secrets. You know, one of the rules we have in our house is we don't have secrets. You know, because I don't need anybody saying to my kid, don't tell your mom and dad. Because automatically my kids will know, hey, no, something's not right here. There's no I'm able to tell my parents anything, right or wrong. And, you know, that silly stuff about, you know, not calling private areas the anatomical name, you know, calling stuff silly stuff. You know, stop being afraid to say penis and vagina. You know, we are adults, and that's what the Lord made it. That's the language we came up with it. Call it. Because the studies have shown that pedophiles are a little bit turned off by that. You know, it kind of gives them a look, because they like calling it little cute, fun stuff. You know, and another thing, you know, I know we all like to believe in Santa and, you know, keep the magic going, but Christmas is a magical time, not just because of Santa, but because it's Jesus' birthday. Stop letting your 8 and 10 and 11, 12-year-olds still believe in Santa, because that's why that girl was sitting there believing the aliens were her parents. For any kid that you've had that discussion about, we like to have fun and pretend. Sometimes we like to pretend that Santa Claus comes down our chimney. Sometimes we like to pretend that the Tooth Fairy comes and leave us money. A child that hears a story about aliens being their parents is going to be like, what? Because that was my son's look, and he's 5. He was like, my 3-year-old laughed. She laughed when I asked her if she would believe that aliens were her real parents. She laughed. You know, we have to be real with our kids. They expect that. They expect our honesty. And we can't expect our kids to be honest and feel comfortable telling us, hey, this is what happened. This is what somebody said to me. Is it true? If you're not being honest.
Yeah. I think honesty would have helped that family tremendously.
I mean, the husband and wife not even being honest and saying, you know what, I'm struggling. This man is in my ear, and I'm a little bit excited by it. You know, our marriage is feeling a little stale. If you are having these kind of conversations with your spouse, the devil can't sneak his way in.
Right. And I'm surprised they were able to kind of stick it together, to be honest with you. After all of that.
That was shocking.
I was
especially when they were being interviewed in separate places.
Right.
I was like, oh, they must not be together for real.
I didn't think so either, because I was just like, first of all, this man's probably gay, so he probably found him a, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? Kudos to them to be able to make it work, because not only did you have fidelity on both parts, but then you have that kind of trauma going on with one of your children. And, of course, all the other children are affected by that, too, and you are still able to hold your marriage together. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
And another thing that really bothered me, though, is that, I mean, I can understand the daughter wanting to write a book, but the fact that the mom wrote the book really bothered me.
Why?
Well, it bothered me because she was so excited to write this book about it, but she didn't want to tell when it was time to tell.
Because she learned her lesson. When you learn,
wow.
You like, you know what? I'm about to do better. So, I mean.
That's true. But
I see what you're
just
saying.
kind of bother me. Like, okay, you're ready to tell the entire world about what you went through, but you signed the affidavit so you didn't have to tell a judge. That all could have been sealed. Really? So, I'm not saying it bothered me to a big degree, but it just kind of made me go, Yeah, I had big question marks about both of those parents.
And honestly, I was mad that he killed himself, because he needed to be.
He deserved to be brought to justice.
He needed to be brought to justice, and honestly, he needed to be tortured. I'm sorry. He just was doing the most. Like, he needed. I just hated that he took the sucker way. Because he was a sucker, and he was out of control. Even when he was, what was he, 80 or something? He was running over bikers.
So old and was still off the chain.
Just terrible. So, you know, it is what it is. But she did get to look him in his eye and tell him. So, you know, at least she got to do that before he killed himself. So,
and I'm sure that was exceptionally healing for her.
Yeah, I know she probably wanted to bust him in his head one time too. That would probably made her feel good. But anyways, that was our review. I think, like I said, it was very well filmed. Very engaging.
Back to my criticism. That's what I was going to say, is that it would have been nice to have more of the other side of the equation, like his wife, his kids, maybe some of his other friends, just to kind of get a bigger picture of, you know, who he really was and why people believed in him so much. Because his wife was the one that came over there and told him they had to sign those affidavits or he was going to expose the husband for being a homosexual. So it sounded like him and the wife were still kind of, you know, at the very least, buddy-buddy.
I think what it was, because I've watched, it was another movie, I forget what it's called, but it deals with the same issue. But he basically had married a young girl, and she grew up, and then they kind of worked together in, you know, this thing. So, you know, because she's basically still in a kid's mentality, even though she's a woman, you know, she's used to being controlled, so she's doing whatever he said. So I think she probably was one of the first ones maybe that he abused.
But see, and that would have been good stuff to really,
and I agree with
been
you.
some meat and
but
potatoes
I doubt
for that
wife, she probably killed herself too. Or,
but they never even addressed it. Like, what happened to her after the fact? What happened to his kids? Because, you know, my thing was, if he's doing that to somebody else's daughter, what is he doing to his own? And he had several, right?
Right.
You know, it was, and then, you know, I think he even had a boys, and he didn't seem like he had a preference. Not really. You know, and I don't know, maybe he just saw that as a means to an end, the husband. But yeah, that would have been that's my biggest criticism, is that it would have been nice to have that kind of the other side of the coin featured in the film.
Right. So, but that is our review. Overall, I would give this movie a B. It was good.
8 out of 10.
It definitely engages you emotionally. You're just like, what is going on?
Yeah, it really makes you feel angry and sad. No happiness in this documentary to be found. I mean, maybe if you count the ending, the fact that she was able to confront him and get peace and healing. But it was really just overall such a sad story that somebody had to live through that.
All right, that's it. Goodbye.